Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Garage with Bonesaw. Today we'll be taking a look at a rather unique premium heavy tank for the Soviets. It's the Kv-220. It's a Tier 5 heavy tank that's generally not available in the in-game store. Previously it was only available to beta testers of World of Tanks, I believe, on the Russian server, as well as people who bought the pre-order package for World of Tanks on certain servers. They had a number of gift tanks when the game first came out for things like that, including there was a variant of the M6 heavy tank, as well as the M4A4 Sherman. But this is the Kv-220, and you might be wondering how I got one, and the answer to that's pretty simple. Around about Christmas of 2013, they put these things up for sale in the shop, and I bought one because I figured, why the hell not? I might not get another chance. Since then, they've had them up for sale pretty much every other week, so, my purchase might have been a little bit rushed, but I stand by it. So, overall, what is the Kv-220? Because it looks very much just like a KV, doesn't it? Well, that's where you're kind of close. The Kv-220 was an experimental tank produced in the Soviet Union around 1942, and it was essentially the hull of a Kv-3. It was, generally speaking, not put into production. They had a couple of prototypes, one of which took part in the defense of Moscow, but generally speaking, by about the end of 1942, the Kv-3 was considered to be an obsolete concept along with the KV, and the kind of directional shift of Soviet armored doctrine was towards things like the IS and the upgraded T-34 tanks. So the Kv-220 in-game is kind of accurate. It's not 100% accurate. Much like its real-life counterpart, the Kv-220 in-game is built around a Kv-3 hull, 100mm front and side, 80mm rear. Really good armor for a Tier 5 heavy tank. The downside is they got the turret wrong, and they probably did this for balance reasons. The Kv-220 in real life had a different turret, and it mounted a different gun. In real life, it mounted either a 76mm gun, which was in the prototype variants, and then an 85mm gun, which was the one that was actually used in the defense of Moscow. And in-game, obviously, an 85mm gun's a little bit too good, so they just gave it the stock 76mm ZIS-5, which is what the KV comes with as stock anyway. And to be honest, it's a pretty crap gun. I mean, 99mm penetration isn't bad, but when you're a Tier 5 heavy tank coming up against potentially Tier 7s, you will bounce a lot. Only does 110 average damage, which isn't great. The aim time's kind of long with 2.3 seconds, and the accuracy is 0.46, so it's not great. And overall, the tank is kind of cumbersome, so you want to be getting up close to use this gun anyway. Its speed limit is 33 kilometers per hour, which is actually pretty quick. The tank goes, it accelerates well, and it gets up to its full speed well. The downside is that it traverses at only 20 degrees per second, which isn't very good. The other downside is the fact that it loses a lot of speed when it traverses, and that it can't pivot on the spot, which means that its maneuverability isn't great. And also its turret traverse is not amazing. The turret traverse is only 22 degrees per second, which means that often you will be outflanked by lighter and faster vehicles. The upside, however, is this thing does have phenomenal armor for a Tier 5 vehicle. Because like any other KV, it has kind of that dimicky frontal armor facing. It has that angled prow, and even the upper glacis, this kind of driver's port area, is angled. So at 100mm, it's pretty bouncy against most lower tier guns, and if you angle yourself like you should be angling yourself in a tank like this, really putting your enemies off to the side, you'll become much more bouncy, and you can bounce some of those really powerful guns, things like the L70, the DT25, 122mm gun, if you angle yourself right. The main weak point of this tank really would be the turret. It is a stock KV turret, which means that you only have 90mm frontal armor. You do have this big bouncy mantlet, which is helpful, but if people shoot at lower cheeks, they can penetrate. And the side plate of only 75mm on the side and rear means that if enemies get around you, they can penetrate you through the turret, which is a good chance of happening because your turret traverses so slowly, and generally speaking, you will struggle if you're mobbed by multiple enemies. With the Kv-220, it's really a bully tank. It's kind of like the Excelsior and the T-14. You need to pick a line and push it because you're not very quick. You pick a line, you support that group of tanks you're with, absorb a lot of the damage, try and do some with your gun, but just don't count on it. You'll definitely need to pack some premium rounds. Premium rounds just give that little bit of extra penetration, 121mm, and that'll really help you kind of swing those fights in your favor. I generally pack about 24. You don't need them, they're not an absolute necessity. 99mm penetration will get you by against most targets, but I just pack them just in case I come up against something like an enemy KV, because generally speaking, their gun will be better. I also pack a spall lineup to help protect me against high explosive shells because, well, when you're in a tank slow and heavily armored, nothing sucks more than just getting spammed with high explosive and dying. So really what you want to do is, as I said, push the one line that you've chosen. You don't want to try and cross flanks too much. This tank really isn't fast or maneuverable enough to do that. So you just pick that one area, push it, absorb as much damage as you can, and really help that advance. You just have to be careful which area you choose to push. The Kv-220 is quite a large tank. It's also quite cumbersome, which means that if it's choke point and there's a lot of other heavy tanks heading in that direction, generally speaking, you should avoid that area. I know you have good armor, but if you're there with a bunch of other tanks that are trying to poke the corner and shoot, you'll just get in the way because you're too slow to poke the corner. Your turret is centrally mounted, which means you need to expose a lot of yourself to fire and then move back, especially with the long aim time. So generally speaking, you'll just get in the way. You want to I actually like to run this thing with the mediums. If there's a flank that's mainly medium tanks, I take this thing over there because I'll have much better armor. It means I can really kind of bully those enemy mediums I might face, soak up a lot of the damage from my allies, and my allies can kind of support me and stop me from getting outmaneuvered. With the Kv-220, it pays to buddy up with someone. You need support and allies to make sure you don't get outflanked and you don't just get tracked and mobbed and overwhelmed. Because your view range isn't amazing. Only 310 meters means that things like tank destroyers can lurk in bushes and quite easily kill you, especially with only 360 meters of signal range on your radio. Chances are that you can just get isolated and killed very easily. So the word of the day is friends will help you out and you help out your friends, and this tank can become a very, very powerful linchpin in your advance. For this tank, I would strongly recommend a repair kit. People will try to shoot your tracks off. It's generally one of the few ways to stop this tank, but it's actually quite useful to just use your tracks to absorb a lot of the damage that might be coming your way, especially if you angle yourself, because it means that it's much, much harder for your opponents to take you out. Other upgrades that might be valuable on this tank include things like the gun laying drive. I don't have one mounted, but I know other people who do, and it can be quite useful to help your firepower. If you don't like getting your tracks broken so much, enhanced torsion bars is good because it lets you absorb some more of that damage without losing your mobility. And personally, I would actually equip a toolbox just to increase that repair speed, so if you do lose your tracks, it's not down for as long. Unless you really, really feel like spending the money just to make your tank that little bit better of a, I guess you'd say, a pub stomper, vents aren't really all that useful. So overall, the Kv-220 is, I guess you say, it's a super KV. It takes the primary advantage of the KV, that being its armor, and increases it at the cost of some of its mobility and some of its firepower. If you can live with that, the Kv-220 is a very, very effective tank. However, just because you like the KV doesn't necessarily mean you should buy the Kv-220. If you can't live without that extra firepower of the 122mm howitzer or the 85mm gun, then you will certainly want to avoid the Kv-220 because the gun can be frustrating. If not, if you prefer to have that extra armor value, if you like to platoon with other people who play Tier 5 vehicles, the Kv-220 can be a very solid investment. It's a very unique tank and very fun to play. So if you feel like getting one, I would definitely recommend it if you feel it fits your style of play. So here we are on Hidden Village in the Tier 5 Russian premium heavy tank, the Kv-220. Now it's a very Tier 5 heavy tank lineup we have here. Aside from myself, we also have a regular Kv-1, Churchill 1 and a T1 heavy. So I know most of our heavy firepower is going to be heading for kind of along the D&E line. Around there, and normally as a heavy tank I would go there. However, I feel that if I do go there, I'll be countering a lot of things like a Stug, other heavy tanks such as the Churchill Kv-1 that can actually penetrate the 100mm of frontal armor on this tank relatively easily. So instead I'm going to head for the village, because no one ever really heads for the village on this map, aside from medium tanks. So essentially I'm just going to come over here and bully a whole bunch of mediums, where my 100mm of armor will be much more effective, and my rather weak F-34 75mm gun will be much more effective against medium tanks. Fortunately, this shot goes low into the tracks of that M7, but as you can see, I very easily bounced a shot from his 75mm gun. They're all corralled up in that corner there, so I'm just going to push ahead and circle around and just try and get the jump on them. There's Panzer Ausf. I can see if I can get some shots in him. Fortunately, that one misses. As you can see, the aim time on this gun is quite long and its accuracy is not very high. Oh, Panzer 4, bounce the shot from him. Good, 104 damage right there. Pull back a little bit, try and give myself some flank cover. Taking out his cover as well. And they're trying to encircle me, but it's not really going to work. With 100mm of front and side plate, that Ausf A is not going to get through me, and the M7 is really going to struggle unless he gets a very good angle on me or starts loading premium rounds. Now the Wef's taking shots at me. He's taking my track off. However, there is an upside to having a small line on this tank, so I'll take out the M7. Try to engage this M4. Now this isn't a regular M4, this is actually the E4 Sherman. It was a gift for beta testers, and you can buy it on the Russian server as well. But here on the NA server, you don't really see them that much. Alright, as you see, I got outflanked there, so I took a bit of damage, and my turret is damaged. But you know, overall, I'm still in good shape, capable of bouncing a good number of shots. Taking a hit from that Wesp there again, but not really too concerned. Took my track. Unfortunately, I can't really engage his M4 Sherman all that at Panzer 4 all that well, just because he's moving around, and as you can see, the long aim time on the gun means that this gun's really not good for sharpshooting, and generally speaking, the Kv-220 can't really engage against multiple targets on its own. As you can see in that fight, I really needed the backup of the Panzer 4 who's with me. Pretty good Panzer 4 with me as well, but really the Kv-220's job is to take the fire, to distract the enemy, and really give your allies the best opportunity to engage the enemy as they can. Your 76mm gun can be useful against softer targets like this FT-17, but as you can see, don't really rely on it to carry the day. Against targets with kind of good armor, things like Churchill's KVs, you really will need to load premium rounds. I do carry a stock of premium rounds in my tank, and they are very, very important for engaging more heavily armoured targets. However, in scenarios like this, against much more lightly armoured opponents, medium tanks, things like that, you can really be a bullying force on your team, using your heavy armour to break through the lines, absorb a lot of damage. It's very easily a steel wall game right here. You can pick up a lot of those awards, things like Steel Wall, Spartan, and just really push as much as you can to allow your weaker allies in terms of armor to survive and to break through to where they're needed. So the other flank's been won as well, so good play by our allies, and we're just going to push around here and try and pick up a kill on that Wesp. As you can see, the long aim time means you really need to wait with this gun, especially at range. Easily picking up that Wesp kill, and the Churchill one will be taken out in short order. Again in the Kv-220, and as you can see, it's a much more tier 6 match this game. We've got a lot of enemy tier 6 tanks, things like a Kv-2, Kv-1S, as well as Hellcats and tier 6 mediums, and that means you're going to have to play the Kv-220 a little bit differently to how you saw me play it in the previous footage, where I kind of teamed up with the mediums and took the off flank. In this game I really need to stick with the heavies and try and use my armor as well as I can, but I'm really going to need that backup because my gun's going to struggle a lot more against a lot of the enemies I'm facing, and I'm really going to need that kind of good backup. So as you can see, standard AP bouncing on the side of that KV. I'm going to try and take his track off, so that's a good shot there, taking his track off. As you can see, he can't penetrate my frontal armor with his gun. So I'm just going to roll back a little bit, let my allies take some shots down, and just keep plinking some shots into the weak points on his front plate. Keeping myself angled, of course, means it'll be much harder for him to engage. And unfortunately I can't get the shot in past our Kv-2. So I'm going to swing around, engage this Kv-1S with the help of our Kv-2, bouncing that shot on the side plate there. As you can see, angling yourself means you can eat a lot of rounds on the tracks. The Kv-220, just like the KV, has very thick tracks, means you can eat a lot of good damage. And with this APCR ammunition, I can very easily make sure that I will penetrate his frontal plate, and I'll finish him off with the remaining shot, get my track back up just in time, and now I'm going to move around this flank to stop us from getting outflanked. Now I'm going to come out side on and just try and get my turret around to engage this VK-3001. I'm going to take the shot quickly and re-angle because there's plenty of things on my flank. I'm not entirely sure what they are. Okay, so we've got a T1. I'm going to put a shot into him. Alright, his track's probably 8 that, so I'll try and just keep him tracked. Alright, his track's back up. I've stripped his track off, and then Hellcat's gotten the kill. Taking some minor splash there from the FV-304. So I'm going to engage this Hetzer, just aiming at his lower plate. Now he's got the howitzer, and as you can see, that's not too much of a problem. He barely did 100 damage to me, closer to 40. So as you can see, I can very easily just absorb damage from that howitzer with my small liner, while dealing a larger amount of damage back to him, and our Hellcat finishing him off as well. Now I'm just going to wait for my track to come back up. Some people would use their repair kit in this circumstance. I'm not going to, because around that corner there's a Kv-2 and a Kv-1S, and I really need that repair kit just in case they track me in a bad position, because their guns can either do enough damage with the HE shell on the 152mm howitzer to ignore my small liner, or can penetrate me quite easily with that 175mm gun. The high maneuverability of a Kv-1S is also a problem because the Kv-220 is quite sluggish. I'm going to have to go after Kv-2 because the Kv-1S is pulling back. He's reloading, and I'm pretty sure I can get in behind this Kv-2, get a shot in. Bounces, unfortunately. I'm going to pull back to stop the Kv-1S from having a good shot at me. I'm going to take his track off, do some good damage there, and our Kv-2 will finish him off. Alright, I'm going to engage the Kv-1S. Get good penetration there, good damage, and as you can see, my track managed to eat the 122mm round there. Once again, angling yourself is vital. It can really save yourself in situations like this. With a good angle, you can bounce shots from that large 122mm shell. So I'm just going to try and keep him tracked, get my allies to do some damage to him. Unfortunately, when he's angled, I can't penetrate his frontal hull with standard AP ammunition, and I didn't have enough time to reload over to the APCR ammunition, so I'm going to not bother with him. Our Kv-2 is probably going to finish him off with a single shot. I really need to get back to cap, however. We have those two remaining medium tanks, an M4 and an M4E8, threatening our cap, as you can see right now. Thankfully, we do have two quite fast tanks remaining on our team, in the form of a Hellcat and an M4 Sherman, because the Kv-220, as you've seen, is a very sluggish tank, and it's really not useful for defending the cap at a moment's notice, because you really need to be able to choose the direction you're going and commit to that direction for the majority of the game. It's just too sluggish to be used tactically over long distances. So as you can see, I'm coming down the railway lines to get some outflanks on the enemy. Got a shot at the rear of this M4E8. So I finish him off. Actually, it was an E2 Sherman, Jumbo Sherman. Good idea to flank him, then if I'd attacked him from the front, I wouldn't have been able to penetrate him. So I'm going to come around on this M4 Sherman, try and get a kill on him, but our M4 is more than likely going to kill him. So as you can see, can I get in? No. Unfortunately, the M4 was just that little bit too fast and took him out. So that leaves only the enemy artillery in the form of that M41, and we've largely secured the cap. As you can see, very sluggish traverse there on the Kv-220. So I'm more than likely not going to be able to find the M41. The view range on the Kv-220 isn't very good, and I more than likely wouldn't be able to catch him even if he tried to run away. So I'm just going to head straight for the cap, try and pick up some cap points, and that means if the enemy artillery evades us for long enough, we'll be able to cap. And ultimately he does get hunted down somewhere in the 0 line by our M4 Sherman. But generally speaking, that's the game for us, and that earned me a steel wall medal for a lot of that damage I did there, and I only took less than 200 damage from some quite potent guns, especially those 122mm Kv-1S shells. So as you can see, the Kv-220 is more than capable of playing in a tier 6 game. It just requires that you play it slightly differently to how you would lower tiers. You need to angle yourself more and rely more on being a blocking force for your team rather than a pushing force.